Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we are fortunate to have Crist, the CIO of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, returning to the show. Chris, welcome to the show.
Yes. Hello. Good morning. Glad to be here. Really excited to talk to you about the amazing things we're doing at this airport.
Can't wait. Well, before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where CyberLink's intrusion detection comes in. With our 24/7 Security Operations Center, we use a combination of AI and cybersecurity technicians to see when a hacker successfully bypassed your security. So if a bad guy gets past your security, we'll know right away and be able to kick them out. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Chris, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and your role there as CIO?
Yeah, of course. I'm very happy to do that, actually. I'm very thankful to be here and at this organization. So Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, it is the busiest airport in the world. There's no airport in the world that sees as many passengers as we do. So in 2024, we confirmed that we saw a little over 108 million passengers in just 1 year. And so we're seeing roughly 300,000 passengers coming through this facility every single day. And so, as you can imagine, it's an immense operation. You know, we have 63,000 employees that support the efforts here as well. And so technology, as I know you understand, it connects it all together. And so I oversee the technology initiatives for this organization. And it's it's just a significant amount of opportunities, as you can imagine, but it is really, really exciting.
No, that's fantastic. Now you're actually working on a really cool project. Can you talk about it with us? Are you allowed
Sure,
to?
yeah, there are a lot of things I would love to discuss, but there's this one project that, you know, I'm really excited about because it's about really getting after something that no airport has done at this point, as far as I understand. So what we're doing, the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure. So we think about all the technology that's required to keep this organization going 24/7. You know, the camera systems, for example, just the CCTV capability that's throughout our organization. There are thousands of those cameras that's connected to our infrastructure. That we have a security access control system. So that's, you know, people use their badges to access the different areas. That's how we remain secure. That all of those are connected. We have the Wi-Fi capability for both our passengers as well as our employees. The cellular system that we have for cell phone usage for, again, our passengers and our employees. The parking systems, the displays, every display you see. So all of that's connected to our infrastructure. So it's our responsibility to keep that up and going 24/7, you know, all the time. So what we're doing is we're moving forward with a project called the Fiber Loop Project. Essentially, what we're doing is we're creating a literal loop, but creating a fiber loop around our entire airport, all the whole grounds of the airport. And along the way, there are going to be different vaults where they terminate to. And so this will allow for, you know, the employees that are out there, the fire departments, police departments, you know, engineering, construction, all these employees that are distributed throughout the airport, to have connections to the nearest terminal, so that vault, which then connects back to our main data center. The reason why we have a loop is because if there was a severance of a connection between a couple vaults, well, we can still get around to the main data center. So to us, this is really exciting because this will, you know, nothing's perfect, right? There's no absolute guarantees in technology, as I know you understand. But this will significantly reduce our uptime as an organization. And if there's ever a disaster, natural disaster of some kind like that, or maybe even a, you know, cyber threat, we'll be able to be more resilient. So I'm really excited about it.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think the sheer magnitude and scope of the operation, I think is really impressive because, you know, when you fly into an airport, you just see as a passenger, like, oh, you see the terminal and you're like, oh, it's a pretty big airport, some bigger than others. But I think, from a kind of technology perspective, keeping, all the infrastructure that goes into keeping that up, the 24/7, as you said. And I mean, that is quite the challenge. And so, I mean, building in the redundancy and having everything in there, that's impressive. But going back to the fiber though, I mean, I got to ask, how much does something like that? I mean, that's a big project. That's got to cost a pretty penny. How much are we
It
talking? Like
does.
ballpark?
About $110 million. So it is an immense effort. And so, as you can imagine, in an organization like this, I was in healthcare before as a CIO, a few different hospital systems, and construction wasn't really at the top of our
Right.
radar. But here, if you're an airport in the United States and you're not building something, you're not growing.
Yeah.
And so for us to keep up with this demand, because we're projecting that we're going to be seeing 125 million passengers in just a few years, and at one year. So it's just, we had to keep up with the demand. So construction is a big deal. And so I work very closely with our head of infrastructure and engineering. They're doing billions and billions of dollars of projects for this organization. And so it's very important, for IT, for technology, to be incorporated into those construction projects, because again, as I think you understand, and probably your audience understands, technology, it should be a part of almost everything you build these days.
Yeah.
I mean, even parking garages, it's not just about building space anymore. There is technology that helps you to be more efficient with your parking. If you go into a modern parking lot, you got the green lights that show you, hey, you have spaces, or red lights that you don't have spaces. Of course, the payment system and all that. So technology truly is integrated with a lot of that. And as a result, yeah, things like this, it can cost a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I think just the amount of, of you've got your day-to-day operations, keeping that going on top of all of these, the construction. I mean, I think for a lot of CIOs, they don't face that same challenge, right? I mean, I think you've got a rather unique, or I think maybe airport CIOs have a rather unique challenge. And I'd say probably large airport CIOs have this unique
That's a
challenge
good point.
of having to keep up with the growth, because there that doesn't exist in most organizations. Yeah, you have growth in, like, oh, we're putting on some more people. You might
Right,
acquire a new office, you might acquire a new
right.
company. That's a whole thing. And that's a project, but not on the same level and scale of what you're doing there. I mean, that's pretty, it's almost, I mean, that's got to be a little overwhelming. How do you manage all of that, and keep it all straight? Is it just that you have a great team? Are you just like, you're just that good, or it's like you're just that organized? How do you do it? Because it seems like a lot.
And well, yeah, and I appreciate that. I know that, the folks that are leading technology, different organizations, I'm sure that a challenge is, how do you keep it all together? How do you prioritize these different projects? So I'm very thankful that we do have an entire pillar. So our organization is broken up into 6 main pillars, as we call them. Of course, technology is one of them, but then you have operations, you have administration, you have finance, of course. There's a whole commercial pillar. That's a whole nother world, by the way. And then you have infrastructure. So, and engineering. So I'm very, very thankful that we do have a dedicated pillar for infrastructure and engineering. And we have IT professionals that are very closely intertwined with them. But if we didn't have that, they are amazing. That team is incredibly brilliant. They're very smart, but they're projecting out 10 years of what they have to do when it comes to construction and building. And because when you talk about, to your point, when you talk about building, it's not just new office space. It's, you're building, we're considering and talking about, well, how do we need to build a whole nother terminal, right? And that is a whole thing, because you're going to get baggage handling systems and roadways and all the security around that. I mean, it is an immense project. Building a new terminal is likely going to be $1 billion, and so then the parking garages, you would think, oh, okay, but it's like 600 to 800 million dollars to build these to the scale that they are, right? It is immense. So thankfully, we have our strategy in IT that we've created, and since I've come in place, we've really ironed that out. And we are projecting out, what we need to do from a technology perspective. What are we doing for our artificial intelligence? What are we doing with security? What are we doing with biometric scanning, which I would love to talk to you a bit more about? What are we doing to improve the experience from a passenger perspective using technology? What are we doing with autonomous vehicles? Because that's a big thing that we're looking into for airports. Computer vision, I could go on. There's immense opportunities. And so we have this lined up, but we're very closely aligned with the infrastructure projects that are happening too, right? Because we're going to build a brand new data center, and that's an expensive thing, right? And that's very important to us. But yeah, we work with them. So I just feel like, thankfully, to answer your question, thankfully, we have a very smart and effective engineering and infrastructure team that we as the technology pillar gets to work with. And I think we're able to be effective because of that. Now, we're not perfect. We have a lot of opportunities for improvement.
Who doesn't? Well, let me ask you, so how do you keep up with, I can only imagine that the expectation, the pressure of kind of staying on top of all of that, and staying on top of where the industry is going in terms of AI, biometrics, automation, autonomous vehicles, all of these things. So now you, as CIO, you're expected to be the one-stop shop for the organization as to, hey, Chris, what's the future of AI? Hey, Chris, what's the future of autonomous? Hey, Chris, where should we go here? So how do you deal with that?
That's actually the hardest thing for me. I love technology. Hopefully all CIOs and CTOs do. But I really love it, and I love digging in, but it's always a balance of, well, how far do I go in each one of these areas? Getting to the point to where a few years ago, I would find myself on a Saturday morning doing some coding just to brush up on the latest. And, that there's a balance to it all. And I think for me, the challenge is that an organization like this, the busiest in the world, there's so much going on beyond just technology that's important for me to understand. I have to understand why the construction is the way that it is here. I have to understand the FAA regulations and the TSA regulations. I have to understand the physical security requirements here. I've never, ever been in an organization where the physical security requirements were so intense.
Yeah.
So I've had to really dig into that and understand it. Commercial is a whole nother realm that I just honestly haven't really been exposed to in the past. Commercial, we have 300 and at least 330 different concessions and retail shops here at this organization. So it's like a massive shopping mall, right? Probably a huge shopping mall where you have you sell jewelry, you sell watches, you sell food, we got it all. So there's a whole team that's dedicated towards parking and revenue from that, rental car center, the concessions. I could go on, right? So I think it's the challenge is understanding the business, but also keeping up with the technology and how that technology can impact all those things I just mentioned to you and beyond. All right. Yeah. So it's tough, but I try to go to as many of these forums as I can. I try to go to as many of these conferences as I can. I try to keep up with it on my own, and then you just try to hire great people that are curious and are on it, and hoping that you can share lessons and go from there. I know that was a lot, Matt, but it is a lot.
It's the perfect answer, because I think it gives everybody insight, and I think it helps other CIOs feel and other technology leaders, kind of appreciate and feel like they're not alone. I think that it's a very common feeling, I think, at this level, that you're drinking from the fire hose. And on the one hand, you're like, but I need to have every drop in my mouth. You can't possibly get every drop. You can't drink. Nobody can drink this fast. And so it's a matter of kind of staying focused, being at a high enough level to where you see the big moves, and you understand it. And sadly, I think for a lot of us who love the technology, not getting to do the coding stuff, right? Not getting to get our hands dirty and get down in and do the stuff, but staying on that strategic level and then having the good help there. So I think that's really helpful. And so I appreciate you sharing that with everybody, because I think it's a pressure that everybody's feeling now with AI advancing so quickly, with all technology advancing so quickly. And so, you rattled off a few huge areas, and I'd like to go back and kind of dive into it, like the biometrics. I think that has been a really cool area of technology for decades now. And now we're getting to see, thanks to, to the advancement of technology and AI, that now it's really where people kind of always envisioned it to be, or we're kind of on that cusp. And now we're able to really implement it versus like a simple, or like a simple fingerprint reader that, okay, yeah, would get you into your computer or get you into a door that, has historically been plus minus in terms of its reliability and
Right.
everything. But now biometrics has come a long way. So I'd love to hear what you guys are doing in terms of biometrics and where you see the future of biometrics in terms of air travel.
Yeah. That realm is really exciting to me because it's something that impacts the passenger experience directly. And then tying it back to what you were saying about technology is moving so quickly, it's what do you do? How do you keep up, and how do you select what is probably important for your organization? And for us, I think that again, and in the industry we hear, start small, right? So I firmly believe in that. Start small, fail fast, learn fast. I think that's really, really important. And so we're starting with something in terms of AI, narrowing it down to something that we believe we can incorporate. So the biometric capability is one of those things, right? So biometrics is a form of AI because of the computer vision that's required to recognize our faces. And so we've been fortunate at our organization where Delta is headquartered here in Atlanta. If people didn't know that, it's their headquarters here. So this is a major hub for them. And our partnership with Delta, they were the first in the world to incorporate actually biometric recognition for international travel at the gates. And so what we're getting ready to do is here, hopefully in just a few weeks now, we're going to go ahead and move forward with a partner to expand that capability across all of our international gates. And it won't be just proprietary to Delta. It'll be for all airlines. So no matter who you're flying with, you'll have the benefit of going up as you're getting ready to board the plane, going up to get a face scan, and then you're good. You don't have to take out your boarding pass. You don't have to take out a ticket. You don't have to do anything but just look at the camera. And that allows you entry. And so I'm really excited about this because it's all about improving the passenger experience. And that's one way of doing it. And when you think of roughly 300,000 passengers a day, if you can save even 2 seconds per passenger, that is immense. If you save 5 seconds, obviously you can see where that can go. So we're all about being efficient as possible in that passenger experience. And I could go on into what the future that looks like, but that's right now what we're doing with that capability.
That's super cool. So is it basically a direct replacement of that gate experience where you scan your boarding pass, but instead now there's a gate agent there and you just walk up to the camera, it scans you very quickly, and you hear the ding to walk through, kind of like scanning your boarding pass?
Yeah, yes, it is. And that's, to some, they may not think of that as that big of a deal, but it's an incredible incremental step. Right? We got to think about this in increments. So yeah, it replaces that, and you just go up. But there is someone there who, because they're seeing on their end, from a security perspective, it also allows us to be more secure because it's going to confirm, is this passenger supposed to be here, right? We're recognizing their face to the Customs and Border Protection system. We don't store anything locally, right? So, and then also, then it says, okay, do they have a flight today? Or, so you're confirming that they're supposed to be there, which is great, and then it is an incremental step to a very exciting future of where it's going.
So let's take that forward. And before we do, I want to just go back to where you said this is all through Customs and Borders. So so it's their database that you pull directly from to do the facial recognition.
Yeah. So 100%. So for those people that are concerned about their picture getting stored locally or something like that, don't worry about that at all. Right. So it's not stored locally. So essentially it captures your image there, but then it immediately compares to the Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, database. And to your point, that's where it's housed, because those of us that travel internationally, we have to get a passport. If I was going to pull one out, but you have to get your passport. And so that is stored in their database. And so that's all we do is confirm. And then that's it. And then the next person comes up, theirs taken, and the last person is gone. Right. So that's just the way that it works.
Love it. And that's all based off of the passport photo.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Super cool. Yeah. You got to love AI.
Amazing.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. So, okay, so let's move forward into the future. So, how do you see, what's the future look like in terms of biometrics, facial recognition,
Yeah.
and air travel?
So this is what I'm really excited about. There are many things I'm excited about here, but we have, I guess the fact of the matter is, being the airport that we are, we have opportunities to change the aviation experience. And that's why I'm so thrilled to be here. Because as we do this, as I mentioned, incremental step, the future of the passenger experience is that you don't have to stop ever. When you come into the airport, you don't go through a checkpoint that you have to take your stuff out, and then put your shoes, or all that goes away because of the technology that's used to recognize your face. So when we think about that, we think about computer vision. It's all about the computer vision. So in the future, you'll just go through, you'll have your bags in your hand, and computer vision. So, today you may know that, when you put it through the process, they x-ray your stuff and you have someone there that's recognizing the objects. Well, computer vision is doing an amazing job at object recognition. So combine that with x-ray. So no longer will a passenger have to do the whole thing where they put it there. It'll scan and see immediately as you're walking, and also recognize who you are as you're walking. So that is the future. So I'm really excited about that. But in order to get there, right, you do these incremental steps. But that is the goal, for the passenger experience to be like it was before 9/11,
Yeah.
but more secure, as a matter of fact, but more
Yes.
secure, right? So that's what I'm looking forward to. And plus a few other things that I think will certainly improve security and efficiency. I guess I'll bring up one other thing with that. With computer vision, we could recognize if somebody leaves a bag unattended for a duration of time, and then alert a security professional and they can check that out, right? So again, I think you used the word earlier about, you said automation. That's what it's about, is automating those things, automating the alerts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could go on forever, Matt, but yeah, a lot
That's
of
super
exciting
cool.
things.
I mean, that is just so cool. I mean, and on the one hand, I think that people, at least in the States here, they a lot of people are like, the kind of that big brother,
Sure.
and I like that, you tied it back into, look, it's all just based off your passport photo. So it's not like you're registering, and it's interesting, this balance between, you're obviously you're in public, so there's no anonymity. There shouldn't be any sense of privacy when you're in public. So I'm not sure where that kind of knee jerk reaction of,
Mhm.
Big Brother's watching. I mean, in an airport, you kind of want everything watched. I mean,
Yes, you
right?
do.
It's a high traffic area, and if everything can be kind of observed and policed, if you will, in real time,
Yeah.
every interaction, and as you say, with the scale of something like ATL, where you just have millions of people going through. I mean, think about that. All of those interactions, what is that? Billions of interactions, billions
That's a
of
good
bags
point.
dropped, billions of bags
That's a
gone
good point.
through. It's a mind-blowing,
It
amount
is.
of data that has to be scanned. And humans, you know, we simply can't do it. You couldn't scale that large enough. You couldn't have a
No.
large enough security force.
That's so, with that, you're touching on something that's really, really important, and something I was thinking about as you were talking about it, the security aspect of it. We have so under the operations pillar, there's a whole physical security team, right? They're dedicated to security for our airport. And you got to give them kudos for what they do every day. I mean, it's noble what they do. Thank God for them. They're incredible. They're looking out for our safety every day. But we do have visibility right now into every inch of the airport, right? We got to be secure. We got to see what's going on. And there are things that happen, and there are people, as you can imagine, again, 300,000 passengers a day, something's going to happen, right? So where people, someone will do something wrong, or enter an area that's not where they're supposed to be, or what have you. And so then what they do is they go into the camera system and they look at, okay, and they manually track them on different cameras, and then they find out where they're at, and they're trying to, and then eventually a security professional will physically find them based on the last known location via these cameras. Well, as you can imagine, with computer vision, you can recognize them right away, right? So you no longer have to have that lengthy manual process, which We don't want that. When it comes to security, you don't want that to be a lengthy process. You want to try to support our security professionals as much as possible with the right technology.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I think when you're talking about security, that is, it's just so important that you leverage technology, and whether it's physical security or cybersecurity,
Right.
having the right technology and leveraging that is kind of paramount. So let's flip over to the cyber side of things. So
Sure.
that is such a big, you've got such a big operation. And I hate to keep saying that, but I think it's a fair point, right?
Oh yeah.
So there's so much to secure physically, so much to secure, on the cyber side. How do you go about that? Obviously without like divulging,
Sure.
any sort of secrets or anything. What's your approach? How do you do that? Because it's quite an operation.
I actually get this quite a bit when I go to conferences and things like that. I get this a lot. They say, "How do you sleep?" Because how would you not be concerned about cybersecurity in an organization that has this many people come to it? Because you mentioned earlier, unique circumstance, CIOs overseeing very large airports. It might be unique because how many organizations do you have where you have that much volume of people going through it every single day? Every day. It's, I mean, 300,000, that's a pretty large city. And then even the employees that work here every day, the 63,000, that's a pretty large town. I mean, it's a lot. And anyone who understands cybersecurity understands that you're increasing your attack surface. Well, the more people, if you have an airport that has 50 people coming through, okay, right, maybe you don't have as much risk. If you increase that to 300,000, well, your risk is going to go up. There's a lot of things you have to be concerned about. Seattle, for example, immense respect for their CIO and their chief information security officer and their CEO Lance. Incredible team. They suffered from a horrible cyber attack in 2024, and but the kudos I give to them is how they responded. I mean, they were down and they weren't really fully back up for probably weeks, really fully at 100%. But they were sharing knowledge with us. I mean, they, to the extent that they could.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the industry that we're in, because they just immediately like, okay, this is what happened, so forth, so forth. They went through everything. So, with that said, I want to touch on just a few key things that I think really help us. So having an MSSP, managed services security provider, I feel like that's really, really important. 24 having like an extension of your cybersecurity team is really, really important in my opinion. And then of course having those things like continuous monitoring tools and having the risk assessment. By the way, because we're doing a comprehensive risk assessment with TSA. We're getting ready to start that soon, and I'm looking forward to that. So it's about embracing those things. I want to know where our problems are. Nobody needs to be embarrassed. Nobody needs to be ashamed. We would rather know than not know. So go ahead, TSA, come in here. Let's find out where our problems are and let's work to fix them, right? We just completed a penetration test that was 3 weeks long for our organization, and we found some interesting opportunities there to improve. I mean, we do these things continually, and we actually put our redundancy to the test as well. I'm noticing that I'm going on for a while, but there's so much here. I'll just say this one thing. I'll pause. I'll let you.
Yeah.
But we did a controlled shutdown of an entire concourse to test our redundancy, to actually put it into action, and we found challenges. Right, we found opportunities for improvement, and we did the same for our atrium/concourse T, where we actually literally shut down one of the redundant core switches just to see if the other one would truly pick up the load. Like, it was from midnight to 4 a.m., but still we still have operations going.
Yeah.
So anyways, I could go on, but I'll stop there, man.
Well, no, I think that's a really good point, because I think that it's in a 24-hour operation like that with such high volume, how do you get, an opportunity to do the testing without it impacting operations? And I think as you kind of alluded to, there's no real way to do it. You kind of test, carve out an area, a concourse or a terminal or something, and you test it in the least possible, the slowest possible time on the slowest day. cross your fingers and hope that that works. But I mean, that's really tough because it's not like you can test the whole system. That nobody's gonna, that's just too big of a risk, right? So you
Right.
can't, there's some things that you just kind of have to kind of hope and pray and make sure that things are worked out and you engineered it right and that it's all
Right.
working. But that's that adds to a level of stress and anxiety of, well, shit. I mean, we can't test that. So we just have to assume
Yeah.
that our redundant, system is going to work and
Right.
we've done it right. Right. So,
Right.
and not a lot of
Yeah.
people get to experience that the joy of that sort of stress that you have.
The joy of the stress. I do want to say, this might resonate with a lot of people out there. Maybe. When it came time for me recognizing that we hadn't tested our redundant capability, um, I was concerned, of course, and I thought, well, we need to do this. But I asked, when's the last time that we had done this, and the response, well, we've never done that. And so we're like, okay, well, this is a good opportunity. But of course, we were naturally afraid of that. When I brought it to my CEO and the rest of the executive team, as you can imagine, of course, there were concerns, legitimately so. You're going to potentially disrupt operations. And they would ask, well, how long will be down? And my response was an honest one. I don't know. And I wish I could tell you. I said, it could literally be 5 minutes. It could be, it's working. Everything's fine. Okay, let's test the other one. Works fine. Hey, 5 minutes. But I was like, but it could be hours. We could find issues. So some things may not come back up and we don't know why. I mean, we haven't done this. So I'm sorry to tell you, but we don't know. And I'm not going to tell you a lie, but we must do this though.
Yeah.
And so it was tough, but our CEO is incredible. She's incredible. And so we had the support we needed. We ensured that all staff were ready to go just in case something were to happen. I mean, it was a business-wide effort for sure, because we all had to be ready for the worst case scenario, And I got to say that when it came time to turn off that button, I was sweating. I was there, right? I was just like, okay, I'm sweating. My staff's sweating. And I remember my network engineer, he looked at me. He's like, okay, are you sure you want to do this? So let's go. Let's do it. So hopefully people can kind of resonate. Yes, it's scary, but man, we feel amazing on the other end of it, right? Our organization feels better. You just feel better.
That's awesome. Chris, this has been an absolute blast. I love having you on every time, and I'd love to keep having you back as you put in new things. With the biometrics, with AI, with the autonomous vehicles, you name it. You get the fiber loop down, and you can share more. Would love to have you on again to talk more about it, because I think it's just you are kind of setting the standard for so many airports out there and for the aviation community as a whole. So it's great that you get to come on here and kind of share that with us and the community. So I really appreciate that. Would love to have you back on. Before we go, can you share with everybody where they can find out more about you and of course ATL if they're unfamiliar?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So ATL.com is the place to go to look at, more of what's going on for our organization. And also when it comes to me and the LinkedIn, that's pretty much what I have at this point. It's just LinkedIn. Perhaps I'll extend that in the future and get into some other social media realms. But for now, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I would love to talk to folks if they have questions, generally speaking, about the airport and how we operate. So I'm always excited to talk about that.
That's fantastic. Well, Chris, until next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.